Hi, my dog lovers. Hi, this is Dr. Peter Dobias, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Bax, but also to Healthy Dog Recipe Maker that we prepared for you. Many of you have been asking for recipes and what to feed and what not to feed when it comes to dog food and healthy natural dog food. So we created this tool that will give you all you need. It'll show you what ingredients you can feed and which ones you should avoid. It'll give you the dosing, it'll give you the proportions, and it'll give you all the information about how to adjust food when your dog is thin or heavy or just about right. For many years, I've been feeding raw and natural diet now. I've seen the differences between dogs that are fed kibble and natural food, and I know that dogs on natural food, whether it's cooked or raw, live healthier and longer life. So for those of you who have been concerned about the cost of natural food and how you could afford it, it is actually less expensive than when you add the kibble and veterinary bills for an average dog. Today, I would like to show you how easy it is to make recipes. All you need to do is to go to recipemaker.peterdobias.com and click on the start button here. Now, if you wanted to view a video on how this recipe maker started, or you possibly wanted to see why we recommend raw food as nature intended, you can go through this little chart. It all starts in the mouth, where you see the difference in the dentition, where dogs have very sharp teeth. They scissor and shear the meat off the bones and crunch the bones. Now, cows have many molars, and molars are grinding teeth for plant material. Even the front teeth of dogs, the canines, are very clearly suggesting that they're intended to grab the meat and the bones. Cows don't even have upper incisors. They don't have any canines. So it's pretty clear that there is a difference in the digestive tract starting with the mouth. If we go down in the stomach, dogs have very strong stomach gastric juices, pH of 2, which is very acidic. And these juices dissolve meat very easily. Cows and other animals have either larger stomachs or large colons. Rabbits have large colon, cows have 4 stomachs, horses have large colon where they ferment food. Cows have 4 stomachs to ferment food and digest through fermentation. Dogs have very strong pancreas. Cows have very weak pancreas. Now, the reason why dogs and cats are prone to diabetes when they're on processed food is that the pancreas gets stressed because it doesn't know how to digest complex carbohydrates. And when pancreas gets stressed and inflamed, the cells that produce insulin actually deteriorate and eventually are destroyed. So that's how diabetes happens. I have not seen a diabetic dog on raw food in 20 years. It's no coincidence. As I said, dogs have shorter intestines, they have small bowel movements. Cows have larger bowel movements, larger intestines. Now let's go to creating the first recipe. The first step that you want to do is choose your ingredients. Then what we'll do, we'll enter your dog's details. Then we'll add some additional details, and you'll be able to retrieve the recipe, either email it or post it. You'll be able to even embed this whole recipe maker on your website if you wish. When it comes to proteins, dogs should get roughly about 50% meat and other proteins, excluding bones, excluding vegetables. So I'm going to uncheck everything that I checked before. The foods that I like are usually wild meats. They're really hard to get. So sometimes we have to resort to other meats like chicken, turkey, beef, lamb, and others. But remember one thing, variety is super important in feeding raw diet. Now, what we've done here, we also suggest how you can prepare the food. So if you're a raw feeder, you can feed it raw. If you prefer cooking the meat, you can also do that. You can see this little eye has actually more information about that particular meat. Now, I'm going to go to raw eggs, for example. You can see that it's yellow. It means that there is a little bit of a warning or precaution that you have to take. Raw eggs have compound, which is called avidin, And that compound actually prevents protein absorption and digestion. So you don't want to feed too many raw eggs to your dog because he may be digesting less protein. Now, as opposed to that, cooked eggs, you can see, are green eye, and they contain the same amino acids as the raw eggs, but the avidin component is actually disabled or inactivated by cooking. So I'm going to choose some of the proteins here. I'm going to choose elk. I love elk for dogs. Wolves and other canines would hunt deer and elk and rabbits and birds, so it's perfect protein for them. And I'm going to also choose quail here. We've chosen some cooked eggs, and that's about it for this recipe. You may be wondering why I combine the different proteins, because so many veterinarians and other people say that we should never combine protein. Well, whenever I'm unsure what recommendation to make, I go back to nature. And as far as I know, dogs do not choose to eat birds one day and then rabbit another day and then deer. They would eat whatever is available. So I actually do not mind mixing proteins. It's actually healthy. Make sure that you do not feed your dog mono diet of chicken, for example, or turkey, because that's how allergies happen. Now, if you are wondering about tripe, there is information about tripe. It should not replace meat because it has only a very small layer of muscle. Otherwise, it's elastic and collagen fibers, which are not equivalent of muscles. I've seen some dog lovers really liking to replace meat with tripe, and it does not have the full nutritional value. If you want to adjust the proportions of the different proteins that we've selected, you can actually click yes right here and then adjust the slider. So let's say that we'll give about 10% of cooked eggs. I have to slide a little bit, it may not be exactly 10. And then we can give more elk. And then we have some quail meat left over in the fridge from the last dinner of your dog. So you can actually give about 20% of that. It is not exact. What I'm going to ask our programmer to do is to actually round those numbers because it's a little nitpicky here. So I'm going to do exactly this percentage, but it'll be rounded up in the newer version, the updated version of the recipe maker. I'm going to click next. One thing that I want to point out is that in the shopping basket, you have different ingredients that you can choose. I actually pre-selected some of the veggies, but I'm going to deselect them. And it's telling me that I should have at least one type of vegetables to make sure that it fits in the recipe. Now, vegetables are really interesting because there are some vegetables that are very good for dogs, some that should be fed in limited amounts, and some that are actually not good for dogs or even toxic. So the purple items here are toxic or unsuitable for dogs. And the red items should be do not feed. If you look at some of these vegetables, I'm going to choose a few green ones. I'm going to choose asparagus. I'm going to choose bok choy, which is amazing. I'm going to choose broccoli, but that should be fed in limited quantities because it is goitrogenic. It means that it inhibits the ability of the body to use and absorb iodine. So we're going to use that, but we're going to adjust some of the amounts. I like to feed broccoli blanched. Some people ask why I blanch some of the vegetables. Well, over the time, I noticed that some dogs actually, especially the dogs that are prone to diarrhea or poor digestion, they actually don't digest these harder vegetables. So I blanch them. Blanching is actually steaming with submersing them in cold water afterwards, so they actually still remain green and they're not overcooked. So dogs actually do really well with blanched vegetables. You can see another warning here, or yellow ingredient, which means okay in moderation. Cabbage is also from the cruciferae family, like broccoli, and it is also goitrogenic. So we've put all these different pieces of information. You have carrot tops, for example. They're very beneficial. Now, when it comes to carrot tops, I basically take them as any other green. When it comes to carrots, carrots should be fed in moderation. Again, dogs don't digest them very well. They contain a lot of sugar as well. I recommend slightly or lightly steaming them if you want to feed them to your dog. Ginger root is a great digestive tonic. Obviously, we shouldn't be feeding tons of ginger, but it is a healthy ingredient, especially for your dog if he or she is cool and gets cold and has digestion that is not as effective, has a tendency to diarrheas. I am also going to add some green peas. You can see that there is some sort of exclamation or yellow marker on lentils. We can add some lentils, but do make sure that you add 50% of meat in your dog's diet. The lentils can be seen as vegetables, but should not be seen as a protein replacement. Dogs do not do well on lentils. So I'm going to add some parsley. Parsley is amazing. It is a source of chlorophyll. It is a cleanser. It is kind of a superfood in a way because it does really tonify and cleanses the liver and digestive tract. It is one of the most valuable vegetables. Now radishes, they have spicy flavor. I wouldn't be really recommending them to dogs, even though if your dog is a spice lover, you can do that. I'm going to add some lettuce here. So basically, I've just kind of raided my fridge, if you look at it, and did whatever I normally do, just kind of look what is left. I'm going to adjust the ratio of the vegetables again. I have a lot of green lettuce, about 50%. Let's see if I can shrink it down. That may be difficult. I've chosen too many, so I'm just going to reduce the vegetables, or you can just kind of mix them, right? Like it doesn't need to be exact because you and I, when we eat, we don't feed exact amounts. We don't measure our food. We just basically eat what we have in the fridge or we like. So I'm going to do equal amounts of these 5 different vegetables. And also we can see some information about how to prepare the vegetables. And we have some information about fruits as well. I usually recommend not to feed fruits at least 1 hour or less before protein meal, and then 3 hours after you should be feeding any fruits. Some people ask why that is. And the main reason is that fruit has very short digestive time in the stomach. It could start ferment. It is really not good to eat it with protein. That applies to dogs, but also to humans. Now, there are some articles here why fruit and protein should not be fed together. So if you want to learn more information, you can just click on the link and go to the blog. And there's another article about grape and raisins toxicity. Now the next step is to select your organs. Now organs are a little bit of a topic of discussion in our community because some people are surprised that I put, for example, the gizzards or the heart in organs, and most people think that they should be in the muscle. Well, as far as I know from the anatomy perspective, there are actually organs. Second, they do have some residual hormonal content. Heart and gizzards are not the same as regular muscle or meat. When it comes to tripe, I mentioned it before, that tripe is actually not equivalent of a muscle meat, meaning that it has just very small layer of muscle and it's mainly elastin and collagen. So I'm going to choose some gizzards here and I'm going to choose some heart. You know, most of the time you actually don't need to feed more than one organ. And if you don't have any organs at home, it is okay because if you supplement your dog's diet with essential supplements, it is okay to skip the organs once in a while. So don't be obsessive about the organs. I think that dogs do quite well on diet that does not have as many organs. But general rule is that you should ideally feed about 5% of the overall food volume as organs. So once again, it's about 50% meat, then about 20 to 25% bone, 15 to 30% vegetables, and 5% organs. Now, it may have not added exactly 100%, but I've just given you the ranges to make sure that you understand that similar to humans, the diet doesn't need to be exactly precise. Don't obsess about measuring each gram of each ingredient. This recipe maker is to give you a good overall idea what you can do. Now, all the meats and all the organs should be previously frozen. You can feed the vegetables raw or cooked or blanched. And you can also adjust the proportions of the organs, okay? So when it comes to the organs, we kind of calculate the percentage on the basis of 5% of organs. So I'm going to adjust, I'm going to get 3/4 of the gizzards and 1/4, roughly 1/4 of the heart. So this is how it works. Now you can read a little bit about feeding organs. You can see that I've mentioned here about overfeeding liver and the risk of hypervitaminosis A. You can also click on the link here and go to a blog that talks about this. So we thought of everything. I've been teaching people how to feed raw, natural, or cooked natural diet for many, many years. I know what the questions are, so we kind of embedded the questions in this recipe maker. Going back to the recipe maker, I'm going to select the next step. And we can choose bones. Now with bones, you can feed them as a single meal. You can feed your dog either once a day or twice a day. I prefer personally once a day, and I think that it's more common in the canines in the wild because they have to look for food, right? Like they don't always have twice a day a meal. It also allows them to cleanse and fast. But if you are a softie and if you want to feed your dog twice a day, that's definitely possible. What I usually do, I give the meat and vegetables and maybe some organs in a meal. And the next meal, again, meat and vegetables. And the third meal, roughly, I give just bones, whether it be chicken carcasses or it would be some sort of edible bone. Now, beef shanks, beef ribs, if your dog cannot chew them, or some other harder bones that your dog doesn't ingest, should not be counted as dietary bone. They can be good toys or play or chew toys, but they're not nutritious bones, right? Because your dog cannot eat them. Now, there is another issue. I do not recommend feeding beef marrow bones because they're too hard and medium to large sized dogs can crack their teeth. Now, when it comes to giving beef marrow bones to smaller dogs, it's okay as a toy, but it will not have much effect when it comes to scaling and cleaning their teeth. The reason is that the little dogs have small mouth and they can't really crunch on the bones. I know that many people are worried about splinters, whether it's chicken bones or lamb bones. Now, dogs have evolved eating bones. Whether your dog is small or large, if he or she can eat the bone, he or she will most likely digest it. However, if your dog has weak digestion and if you see that the bones get chucked up, then I would recommend feeding ground bones in the food. There are some pet food companies that grind the bones right in the meat. Now, how do you source the meat? Well, you can source it from pet food companies that make raw food and just kind of ask around and also check the meat, see how it smells. I know that if it smells too funny, usually it's not good quality. I've seen some butchers and some companies using lower quality meats. It definitely shows when it comes to the nutritional results. So don't cheap out on your dog's meat because you will see poor nutritional state and maybe some problems. I've seen that in practice. I would recognize if people were buying the cheapest possible raw diet that there was. If you're worried about the cost of raw food in general, remember that kibble plus veterinary bills that are for the treatment of diseases from kibble are actually equal or higher than when you just feed raw meat. So these are bones. You can see that you can choose all sorts of different bones. My favorite bones are turkey bones. They could be rabbit bones, chicken carcasses are really excellent. Goat and lamb bones, all those are available here. So we'll be adding some other bones in this section of the recipe maker. We've been working really hard for many months to get this to you, and I hope as we progress, you'll give us suggestions and we'll improve the recipe maker. So let's have a look what we have in the shopping cart. You can see that we have cooked eggs and elk and quail, and then some vegetables and some organs, and we have not chosen the bones yet. So I'm just going to add actually duck bones in this meal. I just put them on top of the meal so my dog has some fun with the bones. What I've done, I taught Pax and also Sky was taught to chew their bones on a towel. It's really simple. You basically just kind of watch and supervise your dog, and every time he or she moves off the towel, you move them back. And eventually you just can say on the towel and they will know that they have to go on the towel. And if they don't behave and if they violate the rules constantly, take the bone away. And they'll learn that as soon as they move off the towel, the bone will be taken away. If your dog is bone possessive, have two bones and try to switch them. And most likely your dog will be just fine after some time. I'm going to quickly click on this particular area and you can see that I do not recommend marrow bones, and there's an explanation here, and also cooked bones. Do not feed any cooked bones at all. This is what the pet food companies, the kibble companies took advantage of. Some people feed cooked bones and they don't digest, and then there's an obstruction. In 20 years of recommending raw bones, I have not seen one single obstruction in a dog. Now, it may happen if your dog has really weak digestion, but it is so unlikely, and there are so many benefits to raw diet feeding that I would really boldly recommend any dog that is on raw food should be getting raw bones. And as I said, if dogs crunch on bones, they clean their teeth, it is super important to give your dog a bone. Now, there are some pieces of information that you may want to read. It's about digesting bones, it's about feeding them, and all that. Now I'm going to go to the next step. Now we'll enter our dog's name. And Pax is a male. And I'm going to select a photo of Pax. I just recently took a really good profile picture. So let me just see. I'm going to find it. Anyway, Pax is, believe it or not, he's 38 pounds. He's a big pup. He's less than 6 months. This is an important part. If your dog is too thin or too heavy, then we will make an adjustment for you. Now, these amounts are just starting. If your dog is very active, or if you see that you're feeding that amount that we suggest and your dog is getting thinner, I usually recommend adjusting the food by 20% and then see in a week or two, you should see whether your dog is losing or gaining weight depending on what you want to do. I'm actually going to make Pax more than 6 months because it's a little more complicated when it comes to puppies. Puppies should be getting as much food as they want unless they're getting thinner and heavier. If they're getting thinner and they're eating as much as you want, you may want to check with your veterinarian, make sure that your dog doesn't have parasites. If your dog is getting a little chubbier, there is an overweight condition when you feel the backbone and you feel the ribs and you cannot count the ribs. That means that your dog is a little overweight. So if your dog is slightly overweight after you feel him or her, you can actually choose that particular selection and we will adjust the food slightly. I'm going to go to normal weight and I'm going to call this recipe Pax's, I don't know, Elk Delight. You can name your recipe whatever you want. Now, when it comes to feeding meat, I do not eat much meat myself. I would eat meat when I go for a visit at my friends and they cook a meal, which I really appreciate. I'm not going to make a fuss. But otherwise, we do not really buy meat for ourselves. I try to reduce my meat consumption so I can feed my dog because my dog does not have the luxury of eating other foods and thriving on them. Dogs just cannot be vegetarian or vegan. I've seen many dogs that have been on vegan and vegetarian diet and they just don't do well. So I'm just going to say that my dog is so much fun and he is so good. I would buy any food in the world for him and take it off my plate if needed. If I can't afford my dog's food, I will stop drinking Starbucks coffee, which will be about the amount that is needed to feed your dog, to create extra budget for my dog's food. All right. If you want to give instructions to your friends, you want to create this recipe and then share it with your friends, you can just say mix all ingredients together after you chop veggies finely, or something like that. What improvements? I noticed something there. I would like to actually check the colors of toxic vegetables. There is a discrepancy. I will not tell you what it is. Actually, there was something called toxic, and it should be actually avocados are not really toxic, but they're not really suitable or as good for dogs as some other vegetables. Okay, so if you find something, please give us suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. I will choose to get updates. We send many different news, holistic healthcare news and updates and healing tips, how to keep your dog healthy. I write a lot. I love teaching you how to keep your dog healthy because in the practice, I used to repeat everything over and over and over. So when I started my company, peterdobias.com and Dr. Dobias Natural Healing, I decided I'm going to make all the learning available for free. So you don't need to go and consult with me. You can just learn tons of stuff on the website and from the newsletters. So I hope that you will subscribe here. I'm going to write my name. It's Peter Dobias, and I'm just going to use the customer care email address at peterdobias.com. We have 5-star rated customer service. If you have any questions with regards to this recipe maker and you don't find the answer here, you can always email us and our team will help you to find the answers. Now, we cannot provide treatment recommendations, but we can suggest some articles and information pieces and knowledge that may help you with certain conditions that your dog may suffer with. So again, I put the email in. There's one more step here. You can just play this video to see why I recommend supplements for a balanced diet. Now, when I started feeding raw food, I did not use supplements. My dog Sky in 2001 did not get supplements when he was growing up. And I could see the difference between Sky and Pax. Definitely when it comes to the essence of good health, we need to give our dogs all essential nutrients. Now, you may argue that dogs don't need any supplements because they get food. But food is not what it used to be because we've been using and overusing soils. As a result, these nutrients are depleted. So if you want to watch the video and learn more details, you can do it right here. And I'm going to click next. And our dietary plan is ready, and it will tell you exactly how much of what ingredients to feed and what to buy. One more thing. So now on this page, you can adjust the number of days that you want the recipes for. So if you want to buy, let's say, ingredients for 3 days worth of your dog's food, you can do so. Now, if I say 1 day, you can divide it into 2 feedings, of course. And then what you can do, you can save the recipe. You can save it as in a link and then go back to it. So you can save the links, or you can print it. You can also email it to your friend. Now, what you can also do, you can embed this recipe maker on your website and share this with you. If you have a raw pet food company and you would like people to learn how to add vegetables to your meat that you sell, or if you just want to share this with your dog-loving friends and community, you can do that. You can embed. Obviously, there are some other ways of sharing through social media. And when you have your recipe saved, printed, you can share it or embed it on your site. There is one more step, and that is to look at your dog supplements. Now, what we've done, we have pre-entered the information for your dog. And you can see that here are all the supplements and the information about them, why they're needed, and what they're good for. I give my dog packs all 4 essentials. And this is what we usually recommend. Now, green mint is a mineral and amino acid superfood, green chlorophyll-rich superfood, and I've seen huge differences in when it's given and when it's not. I actually take it myself, and even my 84-year-old mother takes green mint. And when it comes to soul food, it's a new generation of multivitamins. It's a certified organic multivitamin for dogs. It also contains some health and organ support ingredients, and it is fermented, which is very different than most vitamins on the market that are just synthetically made and they're not part of whole food. GutSense is a certified organic probiotics for dogs. It is especially made for the digestive tract of canines. And the last one is Feel Good Omega. When we sourced Feel Good Omega, we had many challenges to source safe and sustainable ingredients. There are many companies that still produce fish oil or krill oil, and they're not sustainable because they're actually affecting the whole food chain for fish and whales and other marine mammals. If you do have your dog on krill oil, please reconsider. And when it comes to fish oil, we are concerned about heavy metals and also the problem of overfishing. So what we've chosen is actually an omega oil that is made of calamari. And calamari has increased in population since the 50s because there are fewer fish, and fish eats calamari. So we're actually not really depleting the population of calamari. This is the most sustainable oil that we could find, and it's also made in Norway. All our products are made either in the United States, green mint, soul food, GutSense. Some instances, if you're in Canada, you will get green mint made in Canada, and Feel Good Omega is made in Norway. If you want to add your supplements to your dog's food plan, you can just click here, and you can also learn more and expand these sections and read about the supplements and also read testimonials, what people say. And once again, if you are doubting about supplements, you can actually see that we've created this little infographic about what happened in the past with nutrient cycles. Let's say in Africa, all the nutrients are recycled through grass and herbivores and carnivores and back to the soil. Unfortunately, in the modern nutrient cycle, the food is transported for long distances and it doesn't come back to the soil where it came from. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching this video and caring about your dog. If you have any friends or family who would like to switch to raw or cooked food, please share this recipe maker with them. I hope that we'll be able to help many dog lovers around the world to make the change and keep their dogs healthier and long living. And don't forget to subscribe to our updates and newsletters because we are publishing new pieces of information every week. I love to share whatever I've learned in the course of 30 years of my practice. It's a big relief for me to have a platform where I can do that, because in the past it was much more difficult because I would repeat this information over and over several times a day. And I'm so happy that we created this free system that is available for anyone and everyone around the world. Thank you so much, and give your dog a hug for me. Take care.